What's going on, guys? I'm Icy Rhythms, and this is my review for Resident Evil 2 Remake. Resident Evil 2 Remake is everything I would want from a remake, with survival horror in mind, with Capcom in mind, with Resident Evil in mind. It doesn't have a billion and one pieces of DLC. It's far better than expected. The developer isn't telling you that you'll have to pay $60 for each character side of the story, or worse yet, tell you that on top of that, the game will be split up into $60 sections on top of the $60 for separate characters. Maybe it's $60 for the RPD section of the game and $60 for the sewers, so on and so forth. Capcom is back, and possibly the best they've ever been. They're on such a good run right now, and I think games like Monster Hunter World, Mega Man, Devil May Cry 5, and this remake are just a taste of what's to come. It's no secret at this point that Capcom's RE engine is one of the best, if not the best, in the entire industry. Visually speaking, Resident Evil 2 Remake is one of the best looking games I've ever seen. And if I'm being completely fair, even to games that I love and enjoy, this might be the best looking linear game this generation, hands down. Environments have a ridiculous amount of detail. Zombies and the Tyrant look better than they ever have. The way the gore system works, you can see chunks of flesh and bone become removed as you fire headshots or other points of the body. It's just very, very detailed. And this is coming from someone that's normally pretty picky about gore systems and attention to detail in games. William Birkin coming at you like the horrible thing that he's become. It's just crazy detailed. His character, his being, if you will. Leon and Claire, no longer these blocky pixels on the screen. These are two of the most lifelike looking characters I've ever seen in a game to date. And that was one of the many things that impressed me the most, is the little difference between the detail on the in-game character as you're playing versus the cutscene character as you're watching. There just isn't a lot of difference, and sometimes I couldn't tell much of a difference at all. That's how much of a great job Capcom has done here. Rain effects and that wet look that a lot of games struggle with, RE2 has found a way to perfect that, in my opinion. I've never seen anything like it. Explosions, steam effects, the entire package here is an achievement. I bet anyone involved at Capcom, even if they weren't heavily involved in the Resident Evil 2 or Resident Evil 3 remake, I bet they couldn't be more proud. This is such a technical achievement in so many ways. Playing on PC, the unlocked frame rate I was getting was anywhere from 125 to 160 or more, depending on the situation. I decided for a game like this, I wanted to lock the frame rate. I'll do that from time to time. A buttery smooth 100 FPS with great frame times just make all the difference for me. This is one of the most polished games, if not the most polished game I've ever played. I think the only thing for me that comes close to this level of polish and optimization is maybe Doom 2016. There was no pop-up or texture streaming issues to speak of. Resident Evil 2 Remake, in a word, is gorgeous.
Chew on that, you overgrown son of a bitch.
Yeah, I'm telling you guys right now, you're not going to hear me complain too much about the Resident Evil 2 remake. The gameplay is much better than expected. It's pretty much what I wanted, and then some, as a fan of the original game. Resident Evil 2 is, of course, split up into two characters, Leon Kennedy and Claire Redfield, sister to, of course, Chris from the original game. You'll have much shorter moments where you can play as Sherry and Ada. Ada is just, she's always been a looker, but with modern visuals and all this extra detail, she's a 10, okay? She's hot, real hot. Depending on which character you choose, different parts of the story and the gameplay itself do play out a little bit differently. For example, both characters have weapons that are exclusive to them. Leon has access to a shotgun and the Magnum. Claire will get an SMG and the grenade launcher. They also get more powerful weapons later. Infinite ammo is also a possibility depending on how good you are and how fast you can complete the game. The pistols have always been one of my favorites to use in these games, and most of the guns are all top notch. From the sound to the reload animations, it's all extremely well crafted stuff. Unfortunately, if there was one minor gripe, one little nitpick that I'm not going to dock any points for, it's the sound on some of the pistols. I noticed it right away with Leon. You have all this amazing detail in the game, amazing animations, the best graphics ever in a survival horror game, just technical prowess all around, and your pistols lack that really, really good punch. I mean, Contagion of all games has better pistol sounds on some of their weapons. Maybe this is something mods can fix down the road. One minor complaint doesn't get in the way of all this greatness. It's a survival horror game at the end of the day, and even on standard difficulty, you'll feel right at home with things like item management, running back to safe rooms to decide what's truly important. Maybe you'll, stumble upon items that are just kind of laying around next to a sink or something, and maybe you're full on inventory at that time and you'll have to decide, okay, do I want to discard something? What's really important to me right now? You'll have to decide that for yourself, and that's, to me, that's what makes Resident Evil and really good survival horror games great. I mean, yeah, shooting zombies in this game is one of the better treats it offers, even if you can't get carried away with your ammo on the first or second run, whether you want to pop heads or something else vital on the human body. It looks amazing. It's extremely satisfying. You can take out both legs and arms, and at that point, I never really stuck around long enough to see if the zombies can still attack you, but I would say that's probably a waste of precious ammo unless you've unlocked unlimited ammo. Aiming your weapon and waiting for the reticle to thin out is supposed to give you a higher chance for criticals. I did test this myself. It does seem to work. It's not always possible, depending on the situation. You're going to need to react in, say, a small hallway very quickly, and there's no time to wait for this reticle to thin out. There's just not. A lot of that stuff is situational, so you'll need to decide what shots you want to take and move on. You don't want to spend tons of time trying to cripple zombies or, making sure that they're dead. One shot to the head with the pistol will usually stun a zombie enough, giving you some time to run by or unlock that door that you couldn't before. Lickers in this game make a return, as they should for this remake. They're as frightening as they are annoying. I can't stand lickers. Lickers just, they piss me off. The shotgun and the SMG are pretty much your best bet here for early game. These things, lickers are, they're so annoying. They take a ridiculous amount of damage, and I tried to avoid them where possible. I recommend you do the same. If you can avoid them, if you can run by them quickly, they're very fast, so you have to be careful with that, or you can sneak by them. They will not hear you. If that's a possibility, I recommend doing that as well. So walk by them slowly, or if the option is there, if it presents itself and there's a room really close by, then maybe you can sprint past. Don't get too carried away with lickers or anything else where you feel like you need to have some of the better, more powerful ammo. SMG and shotgun ammo is even more precious than the pistol ammo, in my opinion. Speaking of ammo, combining specific gunpowders that you'll find throughout creates different results depending on what you're combining it with. Some will provide more shotgun ammo or more pistol ammo. Others may create acid rounds, for example. If you know old school Resident Evil and you know it well, making your way around the enemy types is just one piece of this amazing pie. Puzzles are still a thing. Looking for specific documents that give you combinations to a safe, maybe a roll of film that reveals the location of some of the previously hidden items, or even a combination to a locker. This is what Resident Evil is all about. You'll need all of the keys and all of the different puzzle pieces before you can proceed to some of the newer areas. I don't want to say that maybe on the first or second playthrough it's necessary just to get familiar with the entire environment. That way, if you need to run somewhere, or you know where you can get this one specific item, depending on if you're on A or B, and depending if you're Leon or Claire, just to get familiar with the environment. But you don't need to travel to every room or unlock every door or trunk, whatever it is, to proceed to the end of the game. It's just a lot of the items and things that you're going to get are very helpful. Your usual green, blue, and red herbs are still a thing scattered throughout the environments. Combining all three obviously gives you the best results, but if you've made mistakes along the way and you have an abundance of green, well, that works too, at least in terms of your health. I love it. I love it. It puts a smile on my face talking about it. It's amazing. The elephant in the room is, of course, the tyrant. This guy, someone please tell this guy to get out of my way and go the hell away forever. Like forever, ever. Spin it any way you like. This guy is a problem. Depending on how well you're playing and how fast you're proceeding to the next area, he's not going to be a concern for the first 3 or 4 hours, but after that, he will stalk these hallways looking to put his Lexington steel in your ass. I like to think I have a pretty decent sound setup, so I think Capcom did a really good job of masking precisely where the tyrant's footsteps are coming from, because there were moments where I thought he was on maybe the other side of the building, or definitely a good distance away, and it turns out he was just 3 or 4 rooms away, and you make that mistake where you come out of the room, you think it's safe, and you step out, and this guy is exactly right where you didn't want him to be, and he creates such a problem, and he's terrifying, and I don't just mean in a scary way, but he's terrifying. This guy is a huge problem to your progress. Safe rooms are your friend. As far as I know, he can't enter those, but you can't always rely on having a safe room to go to, especially if you're like speed running. You're probably not trying to spend too much time in a safe room at all if you're speed running, to be honest. He's easy to avoid in the more open areas, but the moment he sees you, forget it. He's going to come to that very spot, even if it's just like a floor or 2 down. Unless you already have a plan in place, firing your weapon at that pesky zombie or the liquor that you couldn't get rid of before for whatever reason. Yeah, make sure you have that plan in place, because that's going to be a mistake. He's going to hear that. He's going to come marching. In the more narrow hallways, he's more of a challenge to run around. So keep that in mind. When the tyrant is around, be somewhere else. You can't avoid him. It's just getting familiar with those footsteps and where he may or may not be. You're still going to be able to progress through the game. It's not impossible. A little patience is all you need. On standard mode, you can save this game as many times as you like. This is how the game teaches you. Learn the game first. Then later, if you want to do more and you choose to do speed runs and add some extra challenge, you know the game better than you did on the first couple of runs. For my first playthrough, I chose to play as Leon. As you come back through and play as Claire, a lot has already changed for her specific playthrough, and the same could be said if you flip that and wanted to go back through and do both characters again, and you wanted to play as Claire first on that original run. Some things you'll need to do differently, others seem just a lot easier, much less challenging. I do know that I fared a lot better during some of the boss battle type of moments as Claire than I did with Leon, because I was already familiar. So as with the original, you'll begin outside, you'll make your way into the RPD, the sewers, and then the nest. It's just in some ways the remake changes a lot. In other ways, it remains faithful to what made the original game so special. While some of the environments are a lot more detailed, some of these areas still look and seem very familiar to the original game. I love that. I appreciate that. And it's not a knock on the game, but one thing I wish for was maybe the ability to possibly play with that fixed top-down camera that the earlier games had while keeping the updates to the visuals intact. Oh well, we can't win them all. I have to say, man, again, the remake's gameplay and the visuals exceeded so many expectations. I have little to no complaints outside of wishing that a couple of the guns had more kick or more punch to them. Everything else is about as perfect as I'd expect from a remake from a company that has once again positioned itself as one of the best developers in the world.
Hey, Sherry. I gotta go. You stay right here, though, okay? I'll be back soon. I promise. Now, I'm gonna smell like shit. Literally. Stop! Ada! You'll never get the T-virus! Didn't expect that from a scientist.
Listen, there's always been a lot of moving parts within the Resident Evil story, but for the first few games, I think they're a little bit easier to understand. Your protagonists are Leon and Claire. Take your pick, as their story scenarios do play out a little bit differently depending on who you pick. The introduction of the G-Virus created by William Birkin, and yes, there are mentions of the T-Virus, of course, as there would be for a Resident Evil 2 remake, is really what this game is all about. William's wife, Annette Birkin, is also involved and states that being married to William and spending so much time in the labs was really more of a marriage to their work than a marriage to each other. You can imagine how a company like Umbrella trying to create the ultimate weapon and just having all of these people that think they're smarter than they really are would somehow screw this up. Through notes and other findings, different videotapes, it's more or less a given that the virus was spread through rats. I'm trying to figure out how this billion-dollar operation with so much high-tech shit in their facility couldn't do a slightly better job of pest control, maybe? No? Like, how do these rats even get the chance, Ada Wong is back, but as she should be, it just makes sense. Resident Evil 2 remake, reimagining, however you view this game, more mysterious while being a complete badass at the same time. I found the sections with Ada slowed the pacing down just a little bit for me. What I thought was pretty perfect pacing up until that point is slowed down by these moments. And we're not trying to pretend that it doesn't happen in the original, because it does, but I was hoping maybe they could leave these parts with Ada and Sherry out, or somehow find a way to make them optional, because you do play as Sherry as well, daughter to William and Annette. She makes her return, and I just feel like hers also slows the pacing down, but it's necessary, and it's part of what makes this game and its story special. You're not really doing a whole lot anyway when you're playing as these two characters, a lot of running and hiding, but the section that you play as Sherry is somewhat entertaining. I can't believe they let Brian Irons call this girl a little bitch as he's chasing her through these halls. It's, maybe I shouldn't have laughed at it, but it's entertaining. As with most Resident Evil games, it's never truly over when you finish up with that last boss or that final area in the game. Umbrella is a true force, and obviously a company with a lot more resources than people were led to believe. So they've got a lot of reach in this world. I enjoyed it, though. This is the best Resident Evil has ever been from a writing and character standpoint. Voice acting and the facial animations bring all of this stuff to life in a way that the other games couldn't and just can't. Capcom have really put themselves in the conversation for the best in the industry right now. Resident Evil 2 Remake is fun to play. It's true survival horror. And if someone had asked me maybe, 20 years ago, what would I want Resident Evil to look like and play like in 20 years, it would look a lot like something like this. Very close. Capcom have done everything to make this a worthy remake to one of the most praised survival horror games of all time, and for me, they've succeeded. With Resident Evil 3 just a couple more weeks away, you have to imagine that this train, so to speak, isn't going to stop there. I'm not saying that 5 and 6 have a chance of getting remade, but 4 is definitely getting remade. Just try and imagine 4 with this gameplay, these visuals, this kind of storytelling, better writing than they've ever had before, better animations, overall just effects in general. You know, that atmosphere in that game could be something to drool over. I've seen Resident Evil 2 Remake on console for as low as $15 before. I think I've seen it for as low as 16 or 17 on PC. I regret not playing this immediately when it dropped last year, even after pre-ordering the best edition of this game. I played it for maybe half an hour to an hour, and then I sat it down and I didn't touch it. I started playing other games, and I really regret that. Don't make my mistake. Pick this up for any price. You'll be glad you did. Thank you guys for watching my review. I really appreciate it. Resident Evil 2 Remake is amazing. I'm excited to play 3. I'm sure it's just going to be, just as good, if not better. And I'm really excited. And you guys will definitely get a review for that. But as far as reviews moving forward, I don't know if I'm going to review anything else until maybe Doom Eternal. Will I review that right away? I don't know, but I definitely want to play it right away. So we might have to figure out something else to review next. You guys have a good one. Thanks again. Take care. Peace.
Son of a bitch.